Dark Souls is a bleak game set in an equally bleak universe. The undead curse runs rampant, good men are going hollow, and a sad old man rages against the dying of the light, arresting the natural cycle of the cosmos. From a gameplay perspective, it's no different. You're going to die in some cartoonishly stupid ways that would make even Wile E. Coyote feel bad for you. Learn to fear these obnoxious frog things, and develop a strong distaste for tag team wrestling until you inevitably, death by death, bonfire by bonfire, Lord Soul by Lord Soul, get good. But through it all, there is one shimmering ray of sunlight, a true brother to guide players through the darkness with the power of jolly cooperation. Solaire of Astora. Arguably the most beloved character in the entire Dark Souls trilogy, Solaire is more than just a fan-favorite character. Like a magnificent father, he shines an incandescent beam of hope on both the narrative and the gameplay, giving the chosen undead and the player the strength to carry on in a hostile world. We meet Solaire for the first time at the Undead Parish, near the bridge where a dragon is guarding my personal favorite weapon, the Claymore. Here, Solaire will explain his mission, to seek his very own son. A disciple of Lord Gwyn, he believes he might be able to find it here in Lordran. He'll then ask the player if they'd like to help each other on their respective journeys, and offer them a white sign soapstone so that the player can engage in jolly cooperation with both friendly NPCs like him and other chosen undead online. It's really interesting to me that this is the point in the game where developers decided to introduce players to the co-op mechanic. I'll be covering this in greater detail in a later video, but the first several bosses of Dark Souls, the Asylum Demon, the Taurus Demon, and even everyone's nemesis the Capra Demon can be killed through the use of gimmicks, namely plunging attacks. Obviously, it becomes more challenging to pull off as you get through that trilogy of demon bosses, with the game encouraging you to do it with the Asylum Demon, punishing you for overusing it with the Taurus Demon, and only giving you a small opening and a tiny plank of wood to do it to that Capra bastard. But the fact that this progression exists at all suggests to me that the developers wanted players to use these techniques to help them overcome these early game roadblocks as they learn to play the game and figure out what build suits them best. But with the demon boss triplets in the grave, those gimmicks are as dead as the ancient dragons. Well, there is the hilariously named Ceaseless Discharge, but that's a topic for another time. Regardless, the point remains that this is a crossroads in the game, where the player can no longer rely on a side of cheese to get by. By removing these supports, the developers are indeed telling players that it's time to get good at the game, either through simple talent or by finding a build that suits their skills as a gamer. Still, it would be wrong to assert that From Software removes all forms of player assistance at this point, as evidenced by Solaire and his white sign soapstone. Right when you can't rely on plunging attacks anymore, the developer hands you another tool to help you through your hardest battles. It's just one item, but it's a powerful one, and the earliest example of Solaire bringing his incandescent light to the game. Our next encounter with Solaire is optional, as the player can choose to summon him for the Bell Gargoyles fight. If getting the white sign soapstone wasn't evidence enough that the developers aren't throwing you in the deep end without a life raft, then this makes it perfectly clear. 2 bosses? No problem, my undead friend. You can bring in an ally of your own. It's a great introduction to the co-op mechanic, and a precursor to another tag team match we'll be discussing down the line here. It's a while before the chosen undead runs into Solaire again, but you can summon him for the Gaping Dragon fight if you'd like. It's not as recommended as it probably is for some of the other boss fights he's available for, but I like to do it because it just feels like a canon thing for my character to do, and because I like how calling in both him and Lautrec makes the encounter feel like a foreshadowing of the battle with Radahn from Elden Ring. Of course, Radahn is a lot tougher, and you get to summon a lot more NPCs, but still, it feels like a very early version of some of the same concepts. While navigating Anor Londo, the player will find Solaire sitting by a bonfire inside the cathedral. After fighting through Silver Knights and Sentinels, he's a welcome sight here. He reminds you of his offer to come to your aid should you ever need it. A timely tip, if there ever was one. And if you exhaust his dialogue, he'll basically flirt with you, which is pretty much an anomaly in these games. Obviously, this is more of a joke than anything else. Miyazaki and company aren't trying to ship the Sunbro and the Chosen Undead. But still, his warm and comedic dialogue really stands out here. And not just in the trilogy, but the Soulsborne series at large. I mean, hell, in Elden Ring you can get married to Ranni, and she's still not this welcoming to you. Yet again, he's a shining light on the narrative right when the player needs it. And by Gwyn, are they gonna need it. Because right around the corner from our flirty Sunbro is Ornstein and Smo, the longest running tag team champions in the history of Anor Londo. They are, of course, a legendary boss fight and a landmark encounter for the video game medium as a whole, but we'll talk more about that down the line, when this dynamic duo gets their own video. For now, let's just focus on the fact that they are a pair of ass-kickers who are designed to get a quick 1-2-3, and send you back to Firelink Shrine looking worse than a hollow. But by God, that's Solaire's music, and he's opening up some incandescent light! There's no doubt in my mind, if we were to get some hard data on the summoning of Solaire, that this is the point in the game where most players call on his aid. It's not exactly easy to pull off. The Sentinels get in the way, which actually prompted me to make the run from the Darkmoon bonfire instead of the one inside the cathedral. But once he's inside the arena with you, he's a huge help. Personally, I suspect that the Sentinels are there to arrange things so that at least one of you, either Solaire with his health or you with your Estus flasks, enters the fight at a disadvantage, almost ensuring that it will still come down to a one-on-one fight with Super Smo or Super Ornstein at some point. Still, even if Solaire doesn't make it through the fight, his help, especially for a newer player, is invaluable here. Having someone to draw aggro and throw some lightning bolts is a huge bonus against the Dragon Knight and the Executioner, and probably the clearest demonstration of Solaire bringing his radiant positivity to Dark Souls. With Ornstein and Smo, or at least their illusions, forced to surrender their tag team belts, the player moves on to their meeting with Guinevere, and then back to the Firelink Shrine, where Frampt or Kath, whichever of those dastardly serpents you choose to work with, task them with collecting the Lord Souls. Now that the Chosen Undead has a full dance card of demigods to fight, it might, once again, be some time before you cross paths with Solaire. It's not a requirement to complete his questline, but as long as you've spoken to him in Anor Londo and have yet to journey into Lost Izalith, you can find him at the Sunlight Altar, not far from where you first bumped into him. Here, Solaire will reiterate his desire to find his own son, talk about some of the places he might go looking for it, and give you an invitation to the Warriors of Sunlight Covenant. I really wish I'd been a part of this community when the game came out, because his appearance here, right next to the notorious ruined statue, totally would have convinced me that he was Gwyn's firstborn in disguise, only for the Nameless King to kick my ass, and that theory, to the wayside years later. In any case, to me, this represents the midway point of Solaire's journey. Doubts are creeping in, but he's still pretty confident, likely because of all those bosses he helped you beat. But it's ironic that he offers you membership into his covenant here, because the path to saving the Sunbro requires you to swear allegiance to different forces entirely. Down in Lost Izalith, the player can summon Solaire for the Centipede Demon boss fight, and then find him at the following bonfire indisposed, unsure if he'll ever find his own son. If you progress into the City of Chaos, he'll find the Sunlight Maggot. Lured in by its false light, he'll be overtaken by the vile parasite and become hostile, leaving the player with no choice but to kill their once stalwart ally. But if you've joined the Servants of Chaos Covenant, you can take the shortcut to Lost Izalith and kill the stupid bug before he ever finds it. He'll still be heartbroken, wondering if he's journeyed all this time in search of a son he'll never find. Still, it's better than being forced to put him down. As I see it, Solaire's depression at this point in the game is just as important to his role as the game's incandescent ray of hope as giving you the White Sign Soapstone and coming to your aid against Ornstein and Smo. We all fall down sometimes, not just in life, but in Dark Souls as well. No matter how good you are at these games, we all die over and over again and get our asses kicked far more times than we'd like to admit. The first time I played a Soulsborne game, I spent 2 weeks stuck on the Twin Princes, and here I am, years later, making video essays about the series. It's okay to despair, to feel like you're not getting anywhere, to wonder if you'll ever find your very own son. But despite it all, Solaire never goes hollow. While so many other NPCs lose their minds, from Laurentius to the crestfallen warrior, he perseveres through his sorrow and will join you for your final battle with Gwyn at the kiln of the first flame. As you can probably see here, I didn't exactly need his help, but to me, there really was no other appropriate way for this playthrough to end than defeating the final boss with the Sunbro at my side. As tricky as it is to even get this opportunity, I think it speaks, once more, to the point the developers are trying to make with Solaire. He is the shimmering ray of hope in a bleak universe, both in the narrative and in the gameplay. He helps the player out so many times throughout their adventure, going out of his way to lend us a hand against everyone from a pair of annoying gargoyles to a malformed dragon and even a cannibalistic executioner. And in order to save him, you have to do the same. To go well out of your way, to join a covenant you might not have any interest in, find a secret path, and kill a deadly parasite before he finds it. For him to complete his journey as an incandescent light in your universe, you have to become an incandescent light in his. According to Miyazaki, if you bring Solaire with you for the fight with Gwyn, then he links the fire in his own universe. So as much as you might have needed him in your hardest battles, it was really him who needed you to help him find his very own son. And that's what makes Solaire of Astora so important in Dark Souls. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. This is my first Dark Souls video, but I'm planning to make a whole bunch more. It's such a great game, and I have so much to say about the series as a whole. Huge shout out to my silver and gold tier channel members James Pruitt, Raven Lampkin, Corey Matson, and Reed, who get early access to these videos thanks to donations of $5 to $10 a month. Big thanks to the illustrious Alex Roe, who allows all of us YouTubers to use his incredible Soulsborne remixes for our videos. Next time I cover Dark Souls, I'll be taking a look at Laurentius of the Great Swamp, and talking about a rather personal connection I have to his trademark phrase. See you guys then!